Back to the KDKA-TV Sunday edition. Our special guest this year is a guy usually sitting on this side of the desk. We've got him over here today. David Shribman is the outgoing executive editor of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette after 16 years leading Pittsburgh's daily newspaper, only daily print newspaper now, and then not even every day anymore, but we'll get to that in a second. You've talked about how either right before you took the job or after you took the job, you had a very sobering conversation with the then outgoing executive editor, John Craig.
Well, John was a marvelous friend of mine, and we actually worked together for a year before I became, totally the top guy there. And so we had breakfast the first day, and he outlined to me the Post-Gazette's financial profile. And it was sobering. Actually, sobering understates it. It was terrifying. And I didn't know how long this place could survive because the profits were so small. But I didn't know well enough Pittsburgh or the Post-Gazette to know that it can't be killed and it deserves to live. And it has for 16 years, the last 7 or 8, with substantial losses. You have to thank this family for keeping, the Block family, for keeping this paper alive and keeping Pittsburgh engaged in this sort of thing. But it's a perilous prospect for all print newspapers, except for very, very few. And people like me think this is indispensable. Obviously, we're in the minority because people aren't buying the paper as much as they used to. But we actually have more readers than we ever did, guys. And we have more impact than we ever did, even though we may sell fewer copies and print on fewer days. But we publish 7 days a week.
You publish 7 days. I want to go back to something else. Yeah. When you took the job, you had no idea about the financial straits of...
Well, I knew it wasn't IBM or General Electric in those days.
Well, right now, General Electric's not a great one.
Well, okay, in those days, right.
Right.
Well, I'm just dating myself,
right.
I guess.
Okay.
But it was parlous, I would say. But this was the beginning of the decline of print newspapers. We were kind of ahead of the curve in that regard. But because Pittsburgh is such an unusual place, we actually did better than many of our peer newspapers, because Pittsburghers were a little less eager to adapt maybe to the new technology and more loyal to what they were familiar with. And they knew they had a good paper, and they were rooted. I knew every single day, even the people who hated us and wrote me horrible letters, called me up and stuff like this, I knew Pittsburgh was rooting for the Post-Gazette.
I want to go to, I have two questions. The first of which, you say that right now you have more readers than when you took the job.
Right.
But you're also saying that people aren't buying the paper anymore. So is it all online now?
Well, we have all these online readers. We had no readers in Birmingham, Alabama when I came. We had no readers. Pittsburghers are basically in Charlotte. Now, people who left, right. Charlotte, Dallas, Houston, Washington, those kind of places. We had no readers in there. We have a gazillion readers there now. If a third-string linebacker is injured, those people want to know about it, and they turn to us. And so I feel the reach we have, the opportunity of our journalists to have a national impact is far greater than it was. And I talk to people on the national scale, people who are going to write, who might otherwise write op-eds, for example, for the New York Times. I say, in the democratization of journalism, a whisper in the Post-Gazette is a shout. So you don't have to be in the New York Times. Be in the Post-Gazette.
The other question, if I can ask very, very quickly here, and that is, looking back through your journalistic career, in that time frame, something called USA Today popped up.
Right.
With a much shorter form of
well, actually, that started in 1981, well before I came here.
Right. No, I know that, but I'm saying on a broader basis, did that help hurt basic journalism and how newspapers were put together?
I hope the ghost of Al Newhouse isn't listening, but I think it had no impact at all. Certainly had no impact on me. I read it 3 times in the last 40 years.
It was very important at hotels for a time when it was the only paper you could get. And they did away with jumps. No continued.
Well, they would have jump on one story.
That was it.
But
I thought that
free toothpaste was very important in hotels once too.
Okay, good point. For a regional city like Pittsburgh, if you're not the Washington Post, if you're not the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, or even the LA Times, if you're the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette or the Cincinnati Enquirer or the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, do you see a long-term future for print, daily print journalism?
Well, you know, I don't know the situation in Cincinnati, though I have a daughter living there, and some of these other places. But it's very difficult for medium-sized cities. And I would say, you know, cities with major league ball clubs, but not with Amazon. It's very difficult for them. The advertising base is shrinking. People's reading habits are changing. It's difficult, but you can't imagine the Post-Gazette not appearing in Pittsburgh. You know, at the end of the war, John Gunther went across the country. He wrote a book called Inside USA. There are about 6 people alive who still have that book, but I'm one of them. And he went and
see, this is one of those stories. We don't know if this is
yeah.
So we'll take your word
no
for
idea.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. He wrote Inside USSR too, and he would write about the character of states and cities. And if the latter-day John Gunther came to Pittsburgh, you could not write about Pittsburgh without talking about the substantial influence in a positive way the Post-Gazette has on its community. So I think in that way we endure. In what form, whether it's on paper, whether it's newsslide, whether it's the e-edition, I have no idea. That's for somebody else to decide, and actually for the market to decide. But there will be a Post-Gazette here, I'm convinced, you know, for a very long time.
With the changing...
How about this, until the Pirates win the World Series?
Well, who knows? With the changing economics of print journalism, has journalism on the print side changed? Has it forced any changes in how?
Oh, sure, it's changed. You know, we don't do some things we used to do. We don't run the stock reports anymore. That was a huge to-do. We don't run the TV listings anymore on Sunday.
Except they're saying the KDPG.
Well, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Of course. But so we've tried to change with the times, but we have a readership that really resists change. If you don't believe me, be the executive editor of the week the comics changed. And if you don't think life can be hell, sit in my chair that week.
Right. All right. How about, this is from an article with your alma mater at Dartmouth.
Yes.
And the 2 quotes here. Coverage of President Trump is exhaustive, and covering President Trump is exhausting. One result of Trump's presidency is the best and the brightest wannabe journalists. And I'd like to pair that with the other quote, which has some significance this week with the Wall Street Journal's criticism of the Washington Post, and that is the line between reporter and commentator shouldn't be blurred. If you're a reporter, you ought not to be affiliated with a political party, but instead seek to see the many sides of any issue. Those are quotes from you.
Well, I agree with those entirely.
Yeah, I thought you would.
Yes. Right. Okay, so I think what you're really asking is, has the Trump period changed the profile of journalists, and have journalists gone too far or not far enough? You know, people who like Trump think they've gone too far away, and people who don't like him think they haven't gone far enough. We have a vital role in the society, no matter who the president is, no matter who controls the Congress, and that's to be the conduit of information. You know, the framers of the Constitution created a system in which the people rule, but subliminally they also said that people should know what the hell they're talking about, and that's the role we have. And I think we performed it admirably in this period. There have been some excesses on both sides, but I think generally speaking, all the stuff you know about President Trump, you know because of us. And I can't say that I regret too much that was done. I think that generally speaking, the reporting has been excellent, and we have played our role. You know, in this period, you haven't asked this, but I'm going to segue into it. The prime question of the age is there such a thing as the truth? And I think there is. I don't think there's an alternative truth to 2 + 2 is 4, nor an alternative truth to the fact that the Earth is 93 million miles from the sun, or A² + B² = C². Those are things that there are no alternative truths to. I don't buy the alternative truth, and I know that fake news is not produced in our newsroom or just about any place else.
But what about the president's, what appears to be his efforts to delegitimize otherwise respected news sources by referring to them as fake news? Do you see that eroding the public's trust in what they may have believed was the truth, and now they question it?
I can't go anywhere without, or give a talk anywhere without the question about fake news being the first or the second question. He certainly changed the conversation, undermined the authority of the press in a way that no president has done so before. But I would argue that from Johnson on, the relationship between the press and the president has gone like this, and the anger that the White House has had, every White House has had, with I think the possible exception of Gerald Ford, has increased. And you know that the only president to have brought charges against a reporter was Barack Obama. So this is part of a general trend. President Nixon certainly did not find the press congenial. President Clinton spent 1997 and 1998 fighting the press, fighting mostly the Washington Post. So I think there's equal opportunity pugilism here.
The other thing that I wanted to ask is from your position as executive editor, how often, or do you ever have to tell a reporter or ask a reporter to go back and change something because there might be some bias that comes through? We all have biases, we all have prejudices, whether we like it or not, and it's from the journalistic standpoint, it's sometimes, I'm not going to call it a constant fight, but you're always on guard to not let that happen.
Right. When I was hired as Washington bureau chief of the Boston Globe, my specific job was, this was the phrase, delouse the Globe's political report from bias. Delouse it from bias. And this is, I try to be vigilant on this. I get the front page every night. Maybe twice a week I'll call and change a headline. That's really where I think that some of the crimes, so-called, are committed. Just the other night I changed the word kid from kid to child. I'll sometimes change a word or here or there. But we'll look very, very carefully. But it's also in the selection of the stories and how the stories are shaped. And that happens before 10 o'clock at night. I get the paper about 10 o'clock at night.
We're out of time. It's been a great pleasure working with you, sir. It really has been a privilege.
You guys have been wonderful. And I've enjoyed it. And
don't be a stranger, okay?
Thanks so much.
Take a break. Back with a final thought in a moment.